Welcome everyone to a special Take Human Action PA 2023 Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania convention recap. Lost my voice here. That's how crazy it was. So, you know who I am. I'm Calvin. I'm going to try not to talk too much. But we also got Jamie here, so he'll back me up.
Hello, everybody. I hope everybody had a great time at our convention. I know I did, even though I did not stay in the hotel. I had a lovely time seeing everybody that was involved, and thank you for coming out. Thank you for participating in our events. And yeah, we're just kind of here to talk a little bit about what what went into some of the planning prior to convention and how it unfolded on the floor, and some of the speakers that were there. So
yeah, and Jacob will be joining us in a little bit here. He just had to run to a store like a normal human. How dare he?
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I want to say a lot of work went into this by a lot of people. Just the convention as a whole, like a lot of the planning aspects were done by the convention committee. Like all the officers participated in that. John Rasso,
certainly a special thanks to Alex Graham there.
Yeah, John Rasso did a lot of work. Allison did a lot of work, not just on that, but also on the bylaws committee. Justin Ray did a lot of work on the bylaws, as did Bill and John. So thank you to everyone on any of those committees, the bylaws and convention in particular, for all the hard work that you guys put into it. It's very much appreciated, and we're all thankful for it. And you know, a lot of interesting things did happen at the convention, which we'll get into, but thank you all for making it possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know a while prior to convention, especially going around like probably November, I think is when it first started. I was talking very extensively with Justin, with John, and the entire team that was working on a large portion of the bylaws proposals there. For I was kind of playing devil's advocate with them of like exactly where a lot of other people in the party felt that this was going to go, how they felt about it, and where it ended up landing. You know, in the end, was just a very long, arduous process. And I know a lot of people were uh, maybe not quite content with the entire passing of it, but I mean, it, in fairness, 75% of the attendance decided to vote and pass the proposal in the end. And it wasn't like it was something that was just thrown out there at the last minute. It's a lot really came into the back end of like how that was developed, and Justin was very, very patient in working with everybody that had their concerns leading up to it, and trying to map that out in a way that we would reach some sort of compromise as a community as a whole. And yeah, I really think that this is hopefully a very good and big step moving forward for the party.
Yeah, and I also want to give a special shout out to to Joe Bissell and Nick Szylski, BJ Hebenthal, and everybody that helped out on the team that worked on doing the candidate interviews. That was very important on the caucus side, like trying to get a scope of who all the candidates were, making sure that we had the most qualified people, to the best of that we could evaluate for every position. We also did reviews of bylaws and platform. I also want to thank Roy Monet and Henry Haller for all their work on platform. They were very courteous to us when we came forward with suggestions and came to a good compromise there. And I don't think there were any major disagreements on the platform, so that came together really nicely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just very minor ones on a certain language and very certain aspects of the platform,
Mm-hmm.
but otherwise it went through pretty smoothly. Everybody seemed very happy with our candidates, to at least the extent that I saw. I don't think that there was much of opposition to anything that came forward there. I mean, I know that was a big process that really you took on, Calvin, in developing the slate, because the new bylaws added so many different seats for people to fill, and
Yeah.
you ended up through that interview process and whatnot.
Yeah, Luke Enser as well was a big help with that. Basically, what we had to do was, in addition to evaluating candidates for the 5 judicial committee seats, we also had what we were potentially looking at was the current or formerly current board structure of 3 regional vice chairs, a secretary, a treasurer, and a chair, as opposed to a completely new board structure of a chair, 1 vice chair, secretary, treasurer, and 6 region reps, and multiple positions on a new affiliate council that would all have to be filled. And we had to find candidates for just about all of them, which was quite an undertaking. So,
yeah, and it's like there's frustration seeing some of some of the objection to it online in the aftermath of it and during the convention. But like this really, at the end of the day, it was a very, very arduous, well thought out process to trying to make sure that this went off as smoothly as possible. Like, I mean, I know that it was a very large, ambitious undertaking, and some people are going to be disgruntled about this, but like it really was meant to be done in a way that was, you know, supposed to put us in not a more of a streamlined position for the way that the caucus is trying to move forward in the future, especially coming up to, the I'm sorry, we're going to end up doing the molten maneuver 2.0 here, moving forward shortly, and like some of this needed to be really in place for that to go off successfully without a hitch.
yeah. And I think that covered most of the highlights of some of the work that we saw going into the convention without going into too much detail. But and we'll get into like some of the other aspects, like the speakers and the fun stuff too. But to start with the business, because several people did ask me this question, like in terms of people who were supporting the, complete rewrite and replacement that was basically headed by Justin, Allison, John, and Bill to extent as well. And then I was also talking at certain points with particularly Mark and Ken, who are on Mark Mazzacco and Ken Krawchuk, who are on the other side, saying that, this was not productive. This is not something we should be having. And I don't think, at least at convention, I got a chance to fully flush out my particular position, since they were asking, and since that, before I even get into that, none of the decisions as far as what to endorse or in terms of candidates or platform positions, bylaws, anything like that, none of it was solely done by me. And I'm not saying this I'm just saying this to illustrate that everything was a team effort. We decided as a team between the 4 people I just mentioned earlier, with Luke, Nick, BJ, and Joe. So we all worked together to the best of our abilities to look at all these changes and get the best evaluation we could. In the document that was dubbed Rewrite C, as originally published on the website, I did have, at least speaking for myself, I did have concerns with it to the point that I would not have voted for it or recommended it to be voted in favor of if it was not amended in some form. And I mean more than one amendment. There were several things that I pointed out to the team.
Yeah, I mean,
Fortunately, it did not get communicated in time to make the original deadline. But yeah, everybody saw, I think on Sunday in particular, the amendments that we put forward to, that was essentially our compromise to try to add in as much rights to the membership as possible. But the advantages of why we even wanted to go down this path in the first place, I think in the long term, it'll give our board more flexibility to make some of the decisions that it needs to, while at the same time giving the affiliates the voices they need to check the power of the board when needed, allow the committees to do the good work that they do without interference from the board, and break up the 3 regions that we had into 6 that were yet I know there were some proposals to divide it up by population, but I think geographically in this case, it made more sense to do it this way than solely by population, which could potentially be gerrymandered by a board. So that was something I personally wanted to avoid, but I think that that's about as much a best of a summary as I can give in like 5 minutes without going line by line. So
Sure,
I hope that illustrates it for some people that may have been confused about the stance that we took.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely no illusion there. It's I certainly everybody's very well aware that in the very beginning of this, I was in a bit of an opposition to the entirety of it, from talking to Ken and Mark, and over the course of 3 to 4 months of being in contact with Justin and whatnot, and seeing how this thing was evolving over time to meet the concerns of the rest of the LP, as well as people that were inside of the Mises Caucus. I mean, it was a very deliberate, and I feel like they tried to be as judicial as possible with what exactly came out of it. And there's a lot of good that comes out of it. I think the representation over the new 6 regions is going to be a lot more poignant, especially towards developing the northern part of the state. We have people that are a bit closer to situations with building new affiliates. We have people in the more developed regions that are going to be able to help and focus with events and intercommunication and whatnot. So hopefully this ends up being a success moving forward. Yeah. What do we should probably get into some of the stuff that was going on in the oh, I'm sorry. Welcome, Jacob.
Hello. Sorry, I'm late.
Yeah, he's here. You just missed our big here's why we recommended what we did for the bylaws.
Because we wanted to turn the LPPA into a fascist dictatorship.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah, that might
Right.
Yeah.
It didn't take long. You guys took 13 minutes to explain that?
Not quite. First half of it was talking about our endorsement process for the candidates.
Mm-hmm. And then some of the nitty and gritty of like how exactly over the past 4 months this has evolved into the document that was presented, and the proposals that came shortly after it was passed to amend it for some of the concerns of the people on the floor that may not have been privy to some of those meetings and the development of the document. But yeah,
right.
Did you have anything that you'd like to add to the bylaws?
I mean, if you guys didn't cover it, it's just worth mentioning that, like right now, the current, like what was actually passed with all the amendments and revisements, revisions rather, it's not available yet. So like people who are, I see there's a lot of people online who are saying this or that, but it's like, we don't actually know, like we have different drafts that are out there and different proposals and stuff, but we don't have like the final document. So, I've, even for what it's worth, have some things that I'm not completely happy with, but I'm also like reserving my final judgment till I can kind of like see everything that got hashed out and put together on one PDF, and then go from there. But I think the overall structure is pretty good. I'm really a fan. This is funny because my handle's Biblical Anarchy, so I'm typically raving about my anarchist beliefs and not really paying too much lip service to the Constitution or the Founding Fathers or all that, because that's just not really my thing. But the way that we structured the LPPA reminds me a little bit of the Founding Fathers' vision in the Constitution, because we have kind of now a sort of 2-house legislating body, if you want to look at it that way. And we have a system that more resembles kind of the system of checks and balances that the Founding Fathers tried to make in the Constitution. Again, not really perfectly, and I have many critiques of the Constitution that I could give, but I won't tonight. But the point is that I see some people who are acting like that power was centralized, and to me, it's like I have some issues with certain spots in the bylaws where I think maybe there were too many requirements put on affiliates, maybe, or perhaps voting thresholds are being put a little bit too high. And we might find over the next year that maybe they were a little bit too restrictive and we need to tweak them back. But I think overall, the structure that we created is a good one. It's a good foundation that we can build upon. We can make corrections as we go. It's not like there's no way you're ever going to get something just perfect when you first put it out there. So you put it out there, you try to get it good enough, and then you make corrections as you find things that work, things that don't work. And I think it's actually as much like I think the voting thresholds might be a little bit too high, but it's also perhaps a good thing to start out high because you don't want to have it too low. And so if it's too high, the damage is minimum. Whereas if it's too low, the damage could be greater because you could have too much. It could be chaotic from like too many things being passed so easily. So overall, I'm happy with them, and I think that. But yeah, it'll be helpful once we have the full version out that we can really go over and critique. And it might be worth once we have that doing an episode where we go maybe get some of the people from the bylaws committee on and maybe kind of go into the final version and do a overview of it.
If they keep me on anyway, that was me.
Oh yeah,
one of them. I'm not going to claim credit for too much, except for helping review most of the changes. But yeah, I was on there. Probably will be again.
Well, did you guys, I would assume, attended some of the events this weekend? How do you feel like they went?
Yeah, I did get the gold package, so I was able to attend everything. Showed up just in time for the for the Friday cocktail, like towards the end of it. So that night we had Hannah Cox, and I will admit I ended up liking her a lot more than I originally thought I would, because I don't always agree with her takes on Twitter, at least. That was the extent to which I knew her. However, she spent, well, I think a little less than half, but it is still a significant portion of her talking about her involvement with animal rights group, White Coat something. I wish I should have looked it up. I wasn't thinking about it. I'm sure once I'll look it up when somebody else starts talking, and then I'll correct myself. But basically, she sits on a board for basically it's not like partisan per se, but it seems like a more liberty friendly group that advocates for animal rights. So like one of the top things that they had been pushing for in recent months, for example, was Fauci's been doing all these experiments on like beagles in Africa. We should not be ignoring this. We should be talking about this. Like they're like the good PETA is what it sounds like. When I heard about that, like I had no idea they existed, and she didn't either until they contacted her about like being on their board because they liked some of the stuff she was putting out. So we had a great conversation about it afterwards, and yeah, I mean,
so instead of throwing
really
blood on celebrities' fur coats, they're just actually focusing on going for government officials that are actually doing damage to animals.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I don't know if I've talked about it on this show before, but on other shows I've mentioned that I used to be vegan, and even when I was vegan, I hated PETA because they don't do any favors for anyone in the animal advocate sphere, even people who are not vegan, but just in general. And then, little tangent, but like when I was vegan, when I was involved in like more of the animal advocate side of things and looking more into dietary regulations and all that and things going on in the food industry, there's some seeds of truth there that like vegans and people in those spheres can point to in terms of like government involvement and overregulation and picking winners and losers in the market. I mean, the whole farming industry is just overregulated to death. So that's, not the topic of today's episode, but might be something cool to get some. There's a lot of food freedom people out there in the movement, and we should probably get some
support
of them
your
on.
local co-op.
The name of the group was White Coat Waste, by the way, and I followed them shortly after her speech, and they immediately followed us back. So good
Cool.
group. I would suggest everyone give them a look at White Coat Waste. You can find them on Twitter.
Yep. So I only got the bronze package, so I did not attend for the Ladies for Liberty event. I also missed the comedy show where Adam Nutter roasted me, but I found out about it. I heard about it afterwards anyway. So
yeah,
and
you're
then,
too cool for him anyway.
yeah, I really told him, I was like, I'm not showing up to your show. Like,
yeah,
beneath
but
me.
so I'll summarize those briefly. So our own Autumn Pangea, shout out to her. I think she'll be on the next episode. Moderated the forum with Lainey Huston, who was our guest on episode 37, I think it was, whatever it was, 2 episodes ago. So she's the executive director of the Libertarian Party. Amy Lepore, who will be our guest on our episode this coming Thursday, with episode 39. That will be, she is, I mean, the candidate director for the Mises Caucus. And the other person on the panel was Hannah Cox herself. So they had a good conversation, mostly focusing on liberty outreach, as you might expect, going around talking about, the strategies that they use during their outreach, like how they communicate with others, and, gave good tips on what they would recommend for their outreach as well. They took a few questions. No, it was a good discussion, and then we immediately transitioned over to Adam Nutter and his crew. So quite a bit of a contrast there.
That's with the bronze package there, Jacob, what did you exactly get access to, just so people know next time when they come to these conventions?
Pretty much everything on Saturday I had access to. So attended the breakfast with MAJ, the lunch with God, I forget his name, Dennis. What was it? Who was the lunch speaker?
Yeah, Dennis Porter.
Dennis Porter. I was like, I know it was Dennis, and couldn't remember the last name. Dennis Porter, and then the
and Dave Smith.
Dinner with Dave Smith. Now Dennis and Dave both had things come up last minute, and they couldn't join us in person, so they dialed in on Zoom, I think, or something like that, and we still got to talk to them anyway. I was able to ask a question of Dave over the Zoom, which was pretty cool. And I think the best part of the entire event, though, we led with our best. We had Maj come out for the breakfast event, and I honestly think that Maj's was, at least of the events that I attended, I thought he had the best speech of the entire weekend.
No, I think I agree. That seems to be a recurring thing, because he had the best speech at Reno too.
Yeah, that's
certainly moving at Reno.
At the national
yeah.
event.
So I mean, it's and it was, he made a really good pitch to libertarians to engage in, like, I guess, a positive version of identity, not really identity politics, but just like, we don't want to seek diversity for diversity's sake. We don't want tokens. We don't want to engage in what the left does with, like, wokeness and white privilege and things that I would label as cultural Marxism and things like that. But at the same time, like, we need to reach into new communities, which will and talk to people who aren't like us. And that consequentially means people who have different skin color, but it's not even about the skin color. It's about people that come from just different walks of life, who live in different areas, who live different lifestyles than us, who talk differently than us, dress differently than us, different socioeconomic classes than we are. And we need to be willing to put ourselves in those positions and talk to those people and do outreach, and do it in a way that isn't just shouting taxation is theft at them. And so I thought he had a really good speech. It was like an inspiring call to action, but it was also educational. So, and we're going to be having Maj on, I think, next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did want to add a couple things, including that. So first, Hannah and Lainey both, like, Hannah stayed kind of late Friday night talking to everyone, like hours after her talk ended, and Lainey ended up staying in like all of Saturday too, even though she was only speaking on Friday. So shout out to both of them for sticking around and talk with everyone. Thought that was good. And thanks to Adam and Nutter and his co-host Neil for coming out. It's good seeing them both again, and everyone that they brought over. Maj, I ended up talking to him afterwards because he had to pack up and leave shortly after his talk, but uh, he actually had an invite to go to CPAC like right at the same time. And presumably he already had the thing booked with us, but regardless, he told CPAC no because he had already made a commitment to us. So that was pretty cool when I heard that. And I also asked him about coming on next week, which he told me he would. So we're gonna make sure we confirm that, but that'll be exciting. Yeah, it was unfortunate that Dennis Porter wasn't able to make it. He was going to be testifying advance blockchain Bitcoin freedom in the States, and something came up with Dave. Supposedly it was a family emergency or something. But I'll just add one more thing about his talk. I did ask him a question also, and this was following up on something I saw on going back to the People's Party from the Rage Against the War Machine rally. I've been seeing more of Nick Brana's posts, who's their chair. And he did a long post where he basically said, I talked to Jimmy Dore at the Rage Against the War Machine rally, and I asked him, is Dore 24 thing? Like, are you running for president? And he said yes. But then Jimmy Dore talked with Nick after the fact and said, hey, I want to do this. I'm still like, this is still something I'm very much interested in, but my wife is hesitant. Like, she thinks, it might not be the best move for us, and, family, it's hard to say no to that. So basically what Nick was saying was he was asking people to make videos about how much a Dore 24 campaign would be. And I have a feeling by the time all that's done, and by the time Jimmy Dore sees all those videos of people, in support of him and that they would want him to run, then in the end, he probably will run. And now I said a shorter version of that to Dave, and basically it was like, what's your reaction to like hearing all this, and like basically but in particular, like the rise of, dissident anti-war voices on the presidential stage, taking these positions that the other two parties are afraid to take. And he did acknowledge, like, yeah, this, while we disagree with him on economics and probably most domestic issues, we definitely agree on the anti-war stuff. And it's great to see that come back into the conversation and come back to the left after what feels like years of just being completely absent. So this could be the start of a turning point, and I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah, I have to chime in on that. I mean, as a former anti-war leftist who then became an anti-war libertarian, yeah, I've been screaming, like, where are the anti-war leftists for the last, like, 3-4 years? When we had Scott Horton on the show last month or however long it was ago, I was, before the rally, I was like, where did they all go? And it's like, well, they're going to be at this event. And so it's cool to see people who I can identify with, even though I've kind of moved past that. And, I think that to really be like fully effectively anti-war includes being anti-Fed and being pro-Austrian economics. But it's nice to see people out there like Jimmy Dore, see people like Nick Brana, and see people like in the People's Party who are, a lot of them are like ex-Bernie bros like me, who just, they're like, hey, we just want government to do healthcare and like, the roads and stuff, and stop blowing up brown people across the world, and and stop killing us, and stop, and they're also kind of based on like health freedom, and a lot of them were anti-jab. And because like that, when I was in the left, like I was actually the weird guy who wasn't anti-vaccine. Because that was very common. A lot of them, a lot of the left I remember being around, like they were the crunchy mom type, the, let me sell you the essential oils, and not, a lot of them didn't believe in trust vaccines and stuff. Like, I mean, in the vegan community, because a lot of vaccines have animal products in them. A lot of vegans and stuff were anti-vax and anti big pharma and all this. So it felt like after Trump and then after 2020, it was like, I don't even know what happened to the left. Like they just didn't, not at least the part of the left that I identified with, but it seems like they're making a reemergence. And I mean, A, it's great that we can do these issue coalitions with them, and B, it's opportunities to reach people. And bring them into our camp too.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, being able to agree on at least very minor issues with other parties and focus on events and whatnot is, it's a net gain in the end, and that's what we're here trying to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'll briefly touch on Sunday then, and then we can all go around and just say what we want to do from here. So Sunday, we did have a little bit more business. Now we can touch on elections a little bit. Not as much happened with that as did with bylaws and platform and everything. But as far as the speakers went, the morning I actually missed most of that. But poor Shane Hazel, he's probably at the Atlanta airport for hours because he had a flight that was canceled, and then they scheduled it for another flight later on Friday, and it was delayed. So it was a huge mess. Eventually, he had to just remote in from his house to the Sunday morning breakfast. I missed most of the speech, unfortunately, but the Q&A Q&A was good. He was giving people some good information about some of the movement that he's been involved in with his statewide runs for office in Georgia, his advocacy for Bitcoin. And I almost forgot at the bash on Saturday night, we also had a special guest appearance remotely from Lynn Ulbrich. I know some of the people there, they had seen her before, but others, this was just the whole story of Ross was completely new to them. So I talked to one person in particular who was just yeah, I feel like I've been lied to my whole life because I had no idea any of what they said with Ross's story. Yeah. I know Angela gave an address as well, a recorded address to the bash. That was awesome. I think there was anyone else who spoke at the bash, but we did get to pie a bunch of the officers, so that was nice.
I was a little disappointed they were so gentle with Mike. I thought they would have really
and Mike too.
Because we scared we rolled out the big guns when we already sort of pushed all the haters out. That would have been a good move last year. The year before, but then it was everyone's I don't want to hurt Mike. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And then Mike Termat, the other Mike, spoke on Sunday at lunch. So he is running for the presidential nomination in 2024 in the Libertarian Party. So I had not gotten a chance to talk to him before, so I had a conversation with him. He definitely knows what he's talking about when it comes to criminal justice issues. He's a former officer himself, police officer. So he expressed interest in coming on the show to talk about criminal justice reform at some point. So I think it'd be definitely interesting to do that. Look forward to talking to him a little bit more about that. But as far as non-business stuff goes for the rest of the convention, that's about it on my end. I don't know if you guys want to add anything.
No, Mike Termat, he's actually been very interesting with his, because I believe he currently is located in Virginia, and at least on the East Coast, he's been making a lot of effort to travel to. I believe that's where he's originally from, but he is.
I thought he was in Florida now. Okay.
I may be wrong about that, but I'm fairly certain.
Okay, I mean you might be right then.
He currently lives in Virginia. He's been making an effort to make it out to as many counties as he possibly can for their county meetings and whatnot to introduce himself to everybody. So he's a good speaker. I really do. I like him. I like his conviction with stuff. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah, my wife and I ended up talking to him right before we left on Sunday. We left before he gave a speech and stuff, but he actually managed to. He asked if he could hold we had our baby with us, our youngest, and he asked if he could hold him, and he did, and took a picture with him, and our baby liked him. So I was like, well, a baby doesn't like many people, so he likes you. It's gotta
shaking hands and kissing babies. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, right. So, but yeah, we had a good
I've shaken all the hands or no, I'm here to shake hands and kiss babies, and I've shaken all the hands.
Yeah, shaking all the hands. It's like, as long as you don't sniff the hair, we're all good.
Oh man. Okay. So I guess then real quick before we recap, or sorry, say where we're going from here. So we can just go through elections real quick. The positions did change. They are not the same anymore. There's now an affiliate council, which is the, kind of like the House of Representatives, like Jacob was saying. Then we have the executive board. That the executive board has the party chair, party vice chair, secretary, treasurer, our 6 regional representatives from northwest or central, northeast, southwest, south central, and southeast. Got that all. Okay. And then we've got the 5 judicial committee members.
Oh, there's also an at-large seat.
Yeah, affiliate council chair and affiliate council at large.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Congratulations to all those that were elected. We did have several people reelected, like our own Rob Coburn, Bill Cox, and Greg Deal, and Debbie Burton. They were all reelected to their positions: chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer. We have a lot of other qualified people on there as well. Like people like Jess who've been on the, she's been on the board for a while already. So I'm glad to see her continue in that capacity, and without going name by name, because there's many more that deserve praise. But I do want to wrap this up a little bit earlier than a normal show because we're already going on kind of late. So does anyone want to comment on the officers or talk about where we're going from here?
I mean, as far as the officers go, I'm very happy with everybody that was elected. Very specifically, especially Jess, I think that's a very good role for her position. Like, she's very diplomatic in the way that she reads things between everybody in the LPPA, and she's always been very fair. So it's nice to have somebody in that seat that's going to really look at a lot of this stuff judicially.
Yeah, well said. Jacob, anything?
No, I can't think of much. I mean, I think I'm overall happy. I'm happy with Brian Goodnight's going to be representing my region, the
Right.
South Central region, and which used to be part of the just entire Central region. And anyone who's been following the LPPA as of the last few years knows that getting a good central vice chair has been, and one that can stay, it has been tough. The last good one we had was Tim McMaster, but he unfortunately had to step down for personal reasons. And before that, it was just a long list of people who weren't able to really do much. So I'm hoping to help develop Center Region more with the help of Brian, and being able to focus more on just the Southern region. I think the breakup of the regions is good, and I think that Brian will do a good job. So happy with that, and just happy to see where we're going to go in the next year.
Yeah, shout out to Brian, and Greg's our region rep, so I got to give a shout out to Greg Burton too. So he's a new addition. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. But now do a quick roundup on where we're going from here. So the party in particular is going to focus on elections. This is the year when we're doing local elections. So this is a link for the caucus. I don't have the link for the party handy. If you want to sign up for the party in general, though, you can go to lppa.org. But if you want to sign up for free candidate training from the caucus, sign up at runaslibertarian.com. We are looking for candidates to run for local offices, sheriff, city council, mayor, things that have teeth, basically enforcement capabilities that will allow us to, remove some of the unnecessary and restrictive legislation at the local level, because that's where it's easiest and most effective to make a difference in your community. So that's one area we're going to focus. Another area is issue coalitions. sorry, some comment. Issue coalitions.
Right as I was drinking.
I know. All right. Issue coalitions. Regina, I know. Badger, I know, is going to be doing a lot more work on that. So, there is a. Well, I'll get a full details on it before the next show, but there's going to be there's going to be a gathering in Harrisburg, like a counter protest of sorts, to an event that I think it's
March 23rd.
Okay, in Harrisburg, yeah.
In Harrisburg, yes.
I'll have the full details by the next time, but she's going to be working on that. There's also a rally in support of Duncan Lemp in Maryland coming up, which I also do not have the details handy on, but I'll try to get that for next time too. So exciting things coming up on issue coalitions. There will be more projects coming up with the Rage Against the War Machine Coalition to be announced. So can't say anything on that just yet, but that partnership is not going away either. So, and the Take Human Action Tour. First weekend of April, New York City Blockchain Center in Manhattan Island. Go to Take Human Action Tour, I believe is the correct link. I'll double check that right now. But takehumanactiontour.com. You can come and see great speakers like Gene Epstein, Amy Lepore will be there, Larry Sharpe, Mike Maharrey, MAJ will be there. A lot of great speakers. So I'll get the exact link here. Well, I'll come up with it at the end. I'll give these guys. You guys can talk while I'm looking for it. So go ahead.
So not so much as future projects, but something that did happen towards the end of the convention. There, we had a member of the LP Florida come up. His name was Josh, I believe Lavaca. It starts with an H. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah, okay. It is the correct link, by the way. Before we go on.
Cool. Yeah. So he came up to ask us because a member of the LP Duval County, he was the vice chair, Marcus Reeder, has recently come down with leukemia, and he asked anybody that was available to be a donor to sign up at bethematch.org. And hopefully, I mean, it's certainly not a very enjoyable process of donating bone marrow, but it's something that is extremely necessary, and it's very, very difficult for people to find anyone that would be willing to participate in it. And he participated on plenty of committees down in Florida. He was a door knocker, a local member of the LP, father, husband, and tradesman, and very big member of the community down there. And he would like us to have that plug put in for tonight and at our convention. So
one quick thing I wanted to add now that I'm seeing it, because it looks like they're adding Take Human Action Tour guests all the time. They have some people on here that I hadn't even seen before nor expected. I'll just give two names that stood out to me. People who aren't even like libertarians or right libertarians or people you think would be oriented in our direction at all have now been lined up as speakers. One of them is Ian Crossland, believe it or not. He is going to be speaking at the Oakland, California Take Human Action Tour event. And then somebody from our very own Rage Against the War Machine rally even has joined the coalition. Gerald Salente will be speaking at the Chicago, Illinois Take Human Action Tour. And anyone who saw those videos or saw him speak at the rally knows that you do not want to miss seeing him speak. He has a way with words. So that was awesome. That was awesome to see. But Jacob, go ahead.
Jacob, go on and do what?
Just give like your assessment of where we're going from here.
Oh yeah, no, I thought you covered it. Local elections. It's we're gonna molten maneuver our way into a bunch of positions, run contested positions at the local level where we can't do molten maneuver, and get a lot of libertarians into places where we can nullify the shit out of the feds. That's our plan.
Yeah. And thanks, Greg, in the comments. Definitely got our attention there. I'll just leave it at that for now. But thanks everyone for joining us for this recap. And tune in on Thursday for our episode with Amy, and the week after for another exciting episode with Maj. So until next time, don't forget to take human action.
See you guys.
See ya.